Hi Vanhi, it's been a year and I'm really, really happy to catch up with you today. How are you?
I am good, and it's actually good to see the same people after a year. So it's like building a whole different relationship after meeting somebody in a very busy environment. So it's good. It's good.
Do you take Step, by the way, as a platform for networking a lot and for actually, supporting clients or maybe getting the new clients, or is it more about a community? What is it for you?
For me, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, of course, networking. I'm very interested in knowing what's the newest technology, what are people building, which sectors are really coming up in the startup ecosystem. So that's one. Number two is definitely trying to get a sense of what do people really know about marketing today, especially when it comes to technology. They're building amazing products, but every single time that I've come to Step, it feels like a wake-up call that, okay, people know they need to build a great product, but the marketing is lacking. So it's a lot of learning for me for the business side that, okay, there's going to be a huge learning curve to bring people in.
Yeah.
Or maybe I will have to speak to them one-on-one to make them understand. So it's also community, it's a way for me to reach out to more people and help them understand that why do they need a certain tactic.
So what's hot, what's new this year from the insights perspective? What kind of have the pain points evolved? Your advice to startups, has the conversation itself evolved in your opinion?
Sadly, probably not. But there is one new word that I've been hearing since yesterday. That's called traction. So one thing that everybody's bringing up is we have a lot of traction on our startup, on our idea, but we're not getting customers, we're not getting clients. So that's new. The word is new, but the tactics for getting that traction are still the same. Their understanding and the hold over marketing is sadly still the same. There are very few of them who, probably even have good branding. If you see the taglines of the booths, the product does something. I read the tagline, I went to them assuming it is something else. And then when I finally understood what the product does, I'm like, it doesn't add up. It does not add up. So their branding is also pretty, let's say, behind. So I feel that's still not improved. Although this time startups have come better prepared, at least with the elevator pitches. They're able to explain their product in a much better light. But I wish somebody could also tell them that, hey, you might meet your potential clients, potential partners, integrations over here. So if you could also explain your product's value proposition better, you would have better conversations here rather than just the elevator pitch. The elevator pitch is only meant for investors, not for normal people like us. We understand it, but at the same time, it doesn't engage us to that level. So yeah, kind of the same conversations that I had last year, just different words.
So what do you think, what's the reason behind, companies who build amazing products or probably build products, but probably fail in terms of conveying their message, even on the website or in the value proposition that they're sharing while networking? What do you think was the problem?
So there's this workshop that I had taken, right? It was all around marketing for early stage startups and why most of them are actually failing at it. It's kind of the same thing. The reason is that everybody talks about a minimum viable product, right? So MVPs are being built with a lot more focus, which is amazing, right? But when you're building out an MVP, you're actually not focusing on the messaging. You're a techie. You understand the product, you're building a solution. But at the same time, you're building for a layman. Right? Is that person really interested in knowing how AI-powered or how data-driven your solution is? Probably not. You need to dumb it down for them. I feel when we say MVP in the startup ecosystem, the one thing that we miss from that very conveniently is your user, let's say your unique value proposition, right? Your USP. It's just not there in the checklist. So one of the items that I had added in the checklist was before you even go out there with your MVP, at least have a first draft of your USP. How are you going to speak to your audience? Because unless you know how you're going to speak to your audience, you're just building a product and hoping to God that somebody is going to come and start using my product. So I feel MVPs currently are too focused on UI, UX, how good it looks, how the product functions, but not on conveying its benefits.
And so how do you think startups should approach, let's say, creating that value proposition around the solutions in terms of telling their story, thinking about their branding. So what would help startups to get better on that? What do you think?
I think the number one thing that they really need to do is go back to their why. I'm sure you did not invest 3 months, 6 months into building an MVP without a reason because you found an idea to be really good. Something must have struck as inspiration that moved you in that direction. So why not document, start there, right? That's the best way to begin. That's number one. Number two is take a look at what other people are doing in the same industry, because irrespective of the industry you're in or the product that you're building, there will be overlaps, direct, indirect, right? Take a look at what their USP is, and then kind of see where do you stand out. Do a quick SWOT analysis. It's not even that difficult. If you see a product that does automation, but it does not help you build custom workflows, for instance, yours can. That's your USP. It's just literally as simple as that. And your MVP tells you what your USP can be. So why not now merge your why with the USP that you have over other competitors? So that's like, two things combined together already. And three, talk about it. Because the more you talk about your idea, the more words you put to your idea and you explain it to normal people rather than, just your immediate circle, you get better at telling your story. That's something that I learned the harder way, because I used to condense my story into probably 5 words, that hey, we're this agency and this is what we do, this is who we work with. But then gradually, because people started to counter question and say, okay, what's your background? And then I would give them a little bit about my background. That's when they would understand, oh, that's why you have this agency. But it's an iterative process.
How do you think it is? So we touched upon a little bit on importance of connecting with your particular story as a brand. So what is the right way to start building your story? So and why do a lot of startups shade away from it, or do they even know it?
I'll say they don't know it. To start with, I'll say they don't know it because from investors to incubators, sadly so, they will all focus on your MVP and how much revenue can your product really generate. They're not bothered about how you're going to generate your MVP. That's why you will see that a lot of startups will build a great product, but the branding and marketing activities come almost after an year. So as per statistics, almost 70 to 80% of startups fail within 1 year of operations. That's precisely why, because you focus so much on the product and you just kept sitting there thinking that somebody is going to look at your product and say, hey, I need to use that. That doesn't happen, right? That doesn't happen. So I feel that, the focus right at the top is kind of wrong, so the trickle-down effect is also wrong. That's why startups don't really focus on it. They think of it as a expense, to be honest, that hey, this is too overwhelming, maybe we can focus on it later because we're building the product. Or they're like, this is too much of an upright investment and it's not going to get me an ROI, so let me do this when I have money. And that's another thing that I've probably spoken about multiple times here with people who were who had a booth here at Step. They're like, no, we should start marketing after we have money. How do you get that money without marketing or without sales? Just with a product? Probably not. It's not going to happen.
So do you see, so in terms of the solutions that are this year sort of represent themselves at Step, do you see any specific niche that has increased from the solution perspective, from the number of companies that are representing it?
So I had a very interesting conversation with someone I met very randomly here. It was the same thing. That what are we noticing as a pattern this year? So last year was a lot about AI, right? Automations, AI. Every tagline had AI in it. This year we have data-driven everywhere. Right?
Data-driven.
Yeah, everything's data-driven, and we've practically gone there because I like to get into the product and not just the marketing angle of it. I asked, okay, what part of it is AI? What part of it is data-driven? What exactly are you doing which is data-driven? The people who were, I think, presenting weren't the founders, or maybe they didn't know how to explain it, or if that's not in the product, then it's not in the product, maybe. But no good explanations. So I was still not able to understand as a layman that how is your product using AI? But as a pattern, at least in this area, everybody's gone back to data driven rather than
Why do you
AI.
think it happened?
I think simply because one, this area is slightly lagging behind in the terms that we're using, which is again very important for them to start focusing on branding and marketing. Because if they're using a term which is dated, data driven is no longer the way to go. Data driven was what we used for SaaS. Yes, you still use it today, but we used to use data driven as a phrase 2 years back, right? Then it was AI. Now it's predictive, right? Now it's predictive analytics, predictive
Yeah.
insights.
Right.
So if you want to say data driven, you should actually be saying insights. So it's weird that they've picked up a dated term, but I think that dated term is being picked up simply because the branding marketing exercise didn't happen. No branding expert, no marketing expert will tell you, hey, this should be our leading statement. It should be a leading statement, but it should be combined with something more powerful, more up to date.
So I was talking to someone today about the fact that there are a lot of new technologies that are coming into the marketing space for companies to try every year, every single year. So the question is, do companies need to try them, the solutions to measure some certain aspects of their business, or is it something to just probably play around or just ignore completely? The reason I'm just thinking into that direction, as you fairly mentioned, data-driven was the word probably a few years back, right? But maybe it's the time when companies just genuinely realized what data-driven is, and AI is not to the extent adopted, but when AI will come into a real usage, probably that is going to become a reality, and we will start using AI, let's say, in 5 years, but in a different context. Could this be a trend of that most of the companies have finally realized what data-driven is?
I would say they've realized the importance of data, but they haven't really realized the importance of AI. AI is a term that makes them think it will make them trending, right? So it's being used as a jargon more often than not. So, and it's actually very quick to pick up on this because if I say, hey, this is AI-driven content marketing, if you ask me why 2 times and the second time I falter on my answer, you practically know that no, the first one was made up. That's exactly what has happened this time. The event, every single time we went and we asked a why or a how the third time, just to dive deeper into the product, the answers were like very superficial, not there. So you know that they've just made it up because they need to make it sound cool using AI. But the good thing is that at least they have come to terms with the fact that data is important. But again, are they using data to the fullest? Probably not, because if they were, they would have come up with very strong marketing collaterals to a conference like STEP, right? They wouldn't just come with what they had. I think I've collected 3 very good brochures since yesterday. Imagine 2 entire days, so many startups, only 3 brochures. That made me think the marketing team looks good. It looks good. They
are collecting. So they are collecting the right data and they're using it in the right strategy. So how do companies use AI and, let's say, technical solutions nowadays? And what are there any solutions that you're a big fan of?
Currently, I think I am absolutely fangirling around analytic solutions, but that's a personal preference. But AI is across HR tech, AI is across marketing. That was part of the workshop. I'm absolutely loving how AI is building pace into marketing because of, let's say, people like you and I.
Yeah.
How much of research can we handle in 3 days? It's tough. It takes us 10 days to research if you're, kind of really deep diving into a topic.
Yeah.
AI gives you a springboard, right?
Yeah.
So it builds pace into your system, it builds pace into your process, and that's fantastic. So that is one part that I'm really liking. But the other part that I'm really liking is the predictive analytics side of things, because so far using AI was all about, hey, let's just use AI for speed. Now let's just use AI for predicting what's going to work, what's not going to work. And that's good because when you're saying startup, you don't have the budgets to make mistakes one after the other, right? You can make mistakes, yes, of course, everybody does, but at the same time, imagine spending $1,000 on one marketing activity only for another one to fail again. So that's $2,000 without any ROI coming to you. and your user acquisition cost looks like 200 per person, and your product sells only for $10, you're not recovering that cost, right? It's real bad.
Yeah.
So I feel that with AI coming in, the predictive side becomes very strong. The amount of data that you can extract, even as a startup, by just looking into your competitors, looking into how their past data or their future data looks like, you equip yourself with insights that are so solid for growth trajectories that it's absolutely fantastic. I think that's one side that I'm really looking forward to.
What is the way to make a predictive analytics for a small company, let's say, that probably doesn't have a lot of audience to collect data from? What is the way for them to make a credible source of solutions and decisions?
So I'll say start with the absolute basic version of predictive analytics. Let's say a tool like SEMrush, right? If I am absolutely new, I have zero clue about this market, but I need to trigger a campaign and I need to get some insights. All I need to do is find the closest match company to me, right? It could be a direct competitor, it could be an indirect competitor with a very similar audience. Now, when I find the closest match, a tool like SEMrush gives me demographic data, which is broken down on gender, location, what am I looking for, etc. for the competitor. That's enough past data for you to evaluate, create the first version of data set for yourself, right? And get a direction of where your campaign needs to go. And then this can be an iterative process. Of course, you can add more companies, you can add more competitors to this list. So I feel don't make it complex by trying to invest in something like how we typically, when we talk to clients, CRMs are a very big thing that people are using. But in CRMs, there are startup versions which are friendlier, cost friendly. And then there's HubSpot, which is really expensive. Startup companies who invest in HubSpot are simply draining their money when they don't even have that kind of money in the beginning. You could use a smaller solution.
Like what?
There's something called Salesflare.
Right.
It's built for startups, but you're straight away going for enterprise. I mean, of course, there are benefits of workflows, integrations, etc. But are you getting ROI out of it? A SaaS subscription just for the heck of it doesn't kind of make sense, right? It's almost like, hey, this was trending, everybody's using HubSpot, let me also use HubSpot. That's not how you should be scaling your company. The same goes for predictive analytics. Why are companies straight up aiming at, let's say, maybe Polar Analytics, or why are companies waiting for a GA4 expert to come in and kind of give them data scraping? You don't have to wait for them. There are ready tools like SEMrush out there, right? Which can get you started with enough data which is from the past, and you can predict the future through it. Start with the basic, and as your set starts to build and you're seeing results, then invest in a predictive analytics tool, I would say.
So what kind of sort of solutions can be predicted with even the simple tools, and in which area, for example, we could use this to take the right decisions?
I'll give you probably one example. Like how I said, right, this time I came around and I saw data-driven as a phrase, but it's outdated. So my sentiment behind it, even though data-driven is valid, was negative. Or neutral, let's say neutral. But I definitely didn't feel positive about it. Now, when they say we are AI powered, I'm again very neutral because I still don't see where you're using AI, right? Predictive analytics solutions can go deep into sentiments, right? It can help you evaluate.
Right.
And like, for instance, I am talking to you about this on a podcast. There are people who talk about this on the internet. So if you're not looking into that data online and seeing what are your, what is your target audience talking about, what are the type of words they're using, what is the why behind each of the words that they're using, and it's very hard to decipher. You and I, we may have different ways of talking. So you might think, hey, that person actually meant well, and I might think, no, I think they were sarcastic. We don't know that, right? So that's where predictive analytics again comes in handy, because there is one module of it which is for sentiment analysis. Best way to figure out whether you should be chasing a certain direction or not. Imagine running a campaign for 3 months and then realizing that everybody took it all too negatively and you're never going to get up to speed again. That's one use case, which is fantastic.
So in this case, can you, for example, predict the success of a content product? Let's say something like a video podcast. Can you predict the success of a certain concept?
Definitely versions of it. So there is one version which says which platform will work the best for your videos. What happens when we create videos? We tend to distribute them across multiple platforms, right? The hope is that it'll reach our customers across all touch points. But do you really need to resize that video for each platform every single time? Where is the trajectory of it? You still take about an hour or so, right, to basically repurpose that entire video.
Yeah.
What if you had solid analytics to tell you that today the generation which is using TikTok is slowly moving towards, let's say, LinkedIn? You could have just, kind of focused on LinkedIn. Built
But
your base
is this
there.
the case?
People are not doing it. Again, because when we say data-driven, marketing teams are still not data-driven. They are looking into X company is doing this, let us also do this. So it's a blind follow like kind of funda, where people are like, you're doing this, let me also just replicate the same strategy, not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at data, which is how many views, how many impressions, etc. And they stop right there. What about looking into how your audience is evolving? Are we forgetting the fact that a 25-year-old is also going to be a 30-year-old in 5 years? We're using the same channel to address them, right? It's just as simple as that. Evolve.
Yeah.
Predictive analytics tells you which direction to evolve in. So for video content particularly, for instance, the number of channels are increasing. How about using analytics to guide you which channel needs to be your prime focus so that your strategy can be more tailored for it?
True, but I wish I could analyze my content products. I wish I could analyze whether a certain podcast in a certain topic is going to become successful within the next several months. And do you think the tools like that allow us to do that?
Absolutely. Topics? Absolutely, yes. Platforms, there is still something which is evolving yet. We are able to now monitor which platform works well for what type of content topics. Correct. But is it entirely accurate? Probably not. That's also because the algorithms of each of these platforms are changing constantly. But the one thing which is not changing is our search behavior, right? Or how we use the search engine, let's say. So definitely you can take a look at what topics will pick up when and what's the current rhythm on it. So you can get an estimation of that. Okay, today people are talking about AI-powered marketing, right? I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted a workshop on the same, because it was trending. But where is it going? So a few slides in my deck also included challenges of using AI, because you can't just blindly start using AI for marketing. It's not the best approach. And that was the predictive side of it, because there is a lot of talk around how AI is making this entire space way too noisy, right? There's just too much content out there. So I had to weave that in. So that part was the predictive part of my, let's say, deck, because I looked into future patterns. Is AI spoiling content? Was one of the search terms, which has increased by 339% last seen. So I was like, okay, then that needs to be weaved into the presentation, because how can I not touch upon something which is going to be the case in the future?
So AI is still a thing then in the conversations?
Absolutely, and rightly should be, because solopreneurs, so many of us, so we're running on small teams. I have a small team. There are things that we can do so much faster, but are we replacing skills with AI? Probably not. I think that's one thing that, again, we've spoken about to a lot of startups here, where they think that just running the show with AI and automation is going to serve the purpose. Hey, AI can do that for us. We don't kind of need the human layer, because hey, it's looking into data. The problem is, yes, it is, but does AI let you have a conversation like the one we are having right now? No, there's no human element to it. There's no sentiment to it. You will all end up looking the same, sounding the same.
Right. But how do we use the prediction then?
That's the problem now. How do we use the prediction in such a case, right?
Yeah.
People just want to look at the current data. What is trending, right? How about we spend a little more time on market research, which goes back to our, I think, question number one, that what are people not doing that this problem exists? That's your market research. Your market research currently only revolves around current data.
Yeah.
That, hey, this has happened in the past and this did not work, this worked, and this is what is currently trending. But have you even seen, even Google Trends for that matter, right? Google Trends is, again, a very basic version of what your predictive analytics can look like, right? It tells you the trajectory of a certain trend. Even if we just go there and do our 5-minute research, it tells you whether this is going to pick up or it's not going to pick up. So I feel that even in the marketing research or the market research that we do while building a product, that element is missing altogether.
But I think you need to also be very precise about the keywords that you're using for Google Trends. I think to be able to get like a really something, something to consider. Yeah, because very often, it's the ability to work with the keywords and the data. I think that is just the combination of both. I have a question about what do you think about tools like generative AI, something like a ChatGPT or whatever, something that helps you to, let's say, translate things, write things, probably adjust things from their creative perspectives. So these are the AI tools that I see are being used a lot in, let's say, marketing and content creation. So how do you see that one fitting in and evolving?
I'm loving them. We have one of our clients is actually an AI video generator. So for a company, let's say you're a small business, you have product pictures, but you don't have the budgets for maybe videography of those products. You can let AI generate it for you, right? So all you need to do is like upload your pictures and it creates a beautiful video out of it. Fantastic for a solopreneur, small store, small business. It works really well. Again, now somebody like me who needs to manage, let's say, my Twitter account, my LinkedIn account, and I'm very specific about doing it myself. So my focus is actually on LinkedIn. I tend to write more authentically on LinkedIn without AI. Why? Because I need to sound more like myself. But can I go missing from Twitter? No, I can't. I need to be there as well. So here's what I do. I pick up my LinkedIn post, use generative AI, kind of condense the whole thing into a tweet. I don't put an effort there, right? It's
it definitely helps you to, first of all, stay consistent.
Yes.
The only thing is that for example, I use ChatGPT quite often to help me script certain things. But can I use this script later on without my own thinking?
That's a big no. I think one of the best practices right at the top is do not use AI blindly. I call it blindly now because I think the number of times that I hear people say, AI can create that content for us. I don't think we need content writers, copywriters. We don't need brand strategists. AI can do the research. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, sure. So there are times when you find people who are willing to see how everything will pan out. So you explain things to them. And then there are other times where you find people who will not agree with you. So they're like, no, AI can replace you. I'm like, sure. You know what? I think you should try it out.
Probably, you tell me, you're a data person, right? You tell me, do you see AI replacing a human brain at some point? Because AI is a mechanism that learns as well, right? And so speaking about, whether we can use it at the moment blindly, not at all. Even the scripts that I sometimes, they give me the prompts, they give me the directions to take. But the way you unpack each and every conversation and an interview or even a post or an article that you're writing, it comes from a person and from a human, and you're absolutely right, you nailed that. So we're going to end up with all the same content if we start using AI blindly.
I'll give you the best example of what you just said. Have you started to see or notice this trend of using the word elevate?
Elevate, certain things elevate ecosystem and
elevate your marketing, elevate your sales, elevate your automation, elevate your workforce. Elevate is not a word we use day to day. What is elevate? Like it doesn't make sense, right? Your conclusions to an article are get ready to elevate your email marketing campaigns. So in my team, I have a very simple rule. Every single time you use the word elevate, you're paying me for it. Because elevate is a ChatGPT infused term. We don't use the word elevate. How many times do we say upgrade sometimes, or let's get something better? That's what we say, get better. Elevate as a term by itself is so superfluous and it doesn't make sense. We don't do that. So that's where the human brain comes in, right? So if you want to elevate and sound the same, sure, go blindly with AI. But if you want to sound human, something that people say, hey, I read that and that makes sense, you need the human brain. So I call AI not a replacement, an enabler. So when you bring in AI tools into your company, you're technically enabling your marketing teams, you yourself, to do better things and allocate your time to do things that matter, and do them faster, not replace things. Imagine building a product simply recommended by ChatGPT. I mean, if you today pulled a prompt and say, hey, create the code for, I need to build
Can
the
you
next
really
sharing box.
create a code?
Oh, yes.
Interesting. Wow.
Yes. Yes. You can practically create a code for building a product, and especially because now there's a product for everything out there already. If I just want to replicate it, it's much easier. But tell me something, if that was the case, what would be the differentiator? You would have maybe versions of Telegram, multiple of them. What's the point? How many users are going to go across 100 apps? They're going to use one, and that one is going to be the one which had that little thing which was different from the others. Right? So yes, people are using AI like crazy, but don't use it as a simple copy paste. Don't use it as a replacement.
Yeah.
You need your brain to still function. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and I'm glad actually you're the first person we're discussing ChatGPT. I'm very surprised about that, by the way, because I think this last year has been about ChatGPT for many, and I've spoken to content creators, and it helps dramatically to offload things that used to be quite a heavy lift in terms of writing it from scratch. I mean, prompting to the direction is a big deal. Giving you a direction to take. I think it's a big help for sure. So as the code, probably, isn't it?
Exactly. What used to take you so much time, like I said, it's an enabler. It's not a replacement. So what used to take you about 6 days, 7 days to code, you get the base code from ChatGPT. You've saved time. Great. But if you're thinking that that's the only effort that you need to put is a good prompt, you're mistaken, because if that was the case, successful companies would be replaced. Every week we would have a different Hootsuite. Every week we would have a different HubSpot. Are they moving? No. Do they have alternatives? Yes. But have they lost market? No. They're going higher, right? Because there is a human side to their products too, and they're building for humans. If they were just copy pasting code and just generating something out of it, so it has to be smart. It has to be smart.
Right. No, that's been an interesting catch up. I'm glad that we went into the sort of an area of data and technology and analytics a little bit, because there's always great to have a guest who you can talk to about that, and it's very important for companies to work with the right people on using the right tools of their businesses. Just share some wisdom, share some words of encouragement that there are solutions for small and big companies. What do you want our audience to do after this conversation?
I think just one thing. Go back to your why, get your branding and marketing strategy in place. Sooner the better. Later is not an option anymore. There's just too much noise out there. So the more you wait, the more you get lost in the amount of noise which is out there. And ChatGPT is making it worse. So unless you know your why, unless you know where your marketing is headed, fueled by that why, you're actually just setting yourself up for disaster. You're setting up for failure. So rather than wait for somebody to come in and tell you, hey, we didn't discover your product, start now. Marketing doesn't mean that you have to spend thousands of dollars, $10,000s of dollars. You can start small, but start somewhere. Don't wait for the right moment. With marketing becoming more and more challenging, competition increasing, you need to begin with marketing day 0, not day 100.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Vanhi. It's been great catching up. It's been great having you at the Pop-Up Studio at STEP 2024.